Hey everybody, happy Sunday night, going into week 20 of this very crazy time. Tonight, I had a really good night, and sorry I haven't posted as much live, just life is so busy, but tonight I want to talk about ADD or ADHD and your risk of COVID-19, but a little bit about why my night was great. My daughter and son-in-law came over for dinner with my 3 grandbabies. 2, Haven is 2, just, you have to love 2. So like blossoming this person. And the word I would use for her is exactly what I would have used for her mother: no fear. And as a parent, completely freaked me out on many occasions. And then Louis, who's now 5, he was described by his grandmother on his father's side as the carbs of grandchildren. So sweet. It's just, you want to grab him and kiss him. And Liam, who's now 9, and he's growing into just such a wonderful young man. But we went swimming and had dinner, and some of you know, because it's posted, that I turned 66 last week, and my assistant Kim made me this incredible birthday cake made out of watermelon and kiwi fruit and strawberries and blueberries, and it was beautiful. And so I had a piece, and it was great. And then I took all the fruit, blended it, and put it into popsicle molds. And I made a lot of them, and the kids just loved them, which of course makes me happy. You want to teach them that you can have amazing food you love that loves you back. But so now for the topic for tonight: the scary connection between ADD or ADHD and COVID-19. So does having ADD put you at risk for contracting COVID-19? If your ADD is untreated, the answer is yes. This is a study coming out of Israel. People with untreated ADD are about 52% more likely to test positive for COVID-19 compared to the people who don't have ADD. This according to a new study in the Journal of Attention Disorders, and it was done on over 14,000 people. When ADD is treated, the infection rate for COVID-19 is no higher than in people who don't have ADD. That's been my experience over the last 30 years. This is one of my best-selling books of all time, Healing ADDs. I sold like 650,000 copies. And when you get it treated, your whole life can be better because you can focus. You have impulse control. You're more thoughtful. Your judgment is better. Planning is better. And I often think untreated ADD is the missing link on why people's marriages work, why your money works, why your life in general works. So if you have ADD and you don't treat it, you could be increasing likely are increasing your risk for COVID. So how many people have ADD? It's estimated 6 million children between the ages of 4 and 17 have been diagnosed with ADD, and only about a quarter of the people who have it are actually diagnosed and treated for it. Approximately 8 million US adults have been diagnosed with the disorder. I actually think it's significantly higher, probably 20 million adults. But less than a quarter, as I said, receive the diagnosis. And those who've been diagnosed, only about 1 in 4 seek treatment. And everybody thinks ADD is one thing. In my book, Healing ADD, I talk about how it's 7 different things. That's what the imaging work we do have found. So based on this new study, that means millions of adults are at risk for developing COVID due to having untreated ADD. So what's ADD got to do with COVID? What's behind the connection between ADD and increased risk? Well, it lies in the hallmark symptoms of ADD: risk-taking behavior, impulsivity, forgetfulness, inattention, poor attention to detail, poor judgment, difficulty with following through. During the pandemic, these characteristics can manifest in potentially harmful ways, like forgetting to wash your hands, impulsively hosting a wild party with a lot of people. We've seen that in the news a lot. Actually, one of the Los Angeles Clippers, wondering about him, actually had to quarantine for 10 days because I think he went to a strip club outside the Orlando bubble. It's like, come on, let's be thinking about this. If you're a Clippers fan, you should be really irritated. Not following health directives, not taking the steps to prevent exposure. These actions put people at greater risk for COVID-19 and to develop the illness and pass it on. And I always say in my house, it's not just about you, it's about all of us. It's not just about you, it's about generations of you. So how do you treat ADD? The study only talked about treating ADD with medication, but they clearly don't work for everyone. And for some people, I saw a patient this week, made them angry, made them irritable. And the reason for that is ADD is not one thing. He has a subtype of ADD I call temporal lobe ADD. It can be from a concussion or you inherit the family irritability, but stimulants tend to make them irritable. We have to first treat their temporal lobes. So over the last 30 years of doing a study called brain SPECT imaging at Amen clinics, what we learned, and we learned this first about ADD, all psychiatric disorders, all of them, anxiety, depression, OCD, PTSD, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, ADHD are not single or simple disorders. They all have multiple types, and giving everyone the same treatment, medication, the same antidepressant, the same antipsychotic, the same mood stabilizer, the same stimulant, just makes no sense, because when we understand the biology of the brain, it helps so much. So one size does not fit everyone. Each type has its own set of symptoms and requires a personalized treatment plan, which I talk about in the book, or if you go to amenclinics.com, we'd be happy to make an appointment for you. You can do a teleconference. I mean, our clinics, 8, soon to be 9 clinics, are all open. I know, I said 9, Dallas, we're coming. Hopefully October, latest November. We're really excited about Texas. So the typical person with ADD, in their scans, what we see is decreased activity in the front part of their brain. So why is that important? The front part of your brain is the most human, thoughtful part of your brain. The front part of your brain is involved with things like forethought, judgment, impulse control, organization, planning, empathy, learning from the mistakes you make. And when it's sleepy, inactivity, you just don't make great decisions. You let things get out of your mouth before they should. Jerry Seinfeld once said, the brain is a sneaky organ. We all have weird, crazy, stupid, sexual, violent thoughts that no one should ever hear. But when you have ADD, they get out. And now that we're at home and school's getting ready to start up again, having untreated ADD kids at home is a recipe for chronic stress, chronic conflict, where a half an hour of homework takes them 2 hours to do with their mom or dad yelling at them. It's not a pretty picture. The level of stress from untreated ADD, not only are you at higher risk for COVID, you're at higher risk for getting abused. You're at higher risk for lots of tears. You're at higher risk for school failure, for substance abuse. You're at higher risk for almost all bad things. Another study on drivers. I mean, I've done that for a long time. People have ADD, get more tickets, they get into more accidents. Being distracted is not good if you're behind a car. So typically with ADD, we see decreased activity in the front part of your brain when you try to concentrate. So what does that mean? The harder you try, the worse it gets. That's why you can't just tell kids or your spouse or friend to just try harder. So briefly, the 7 types of ADD: classic ADD, hyperactive, restless, impulsive, can't concentrate, disorganized. These are the people that run toward fires, higher incidence of ADD among firefighters. And they tend to do well with stimulant medication. So I'm not opposed to medication, but in my mind, exercise, diet, simple supplements like omega-3 fatty acids, magnesium can help. But if the supplements and lifestyle interventions don't work, I'm totally going to use Adderall or Vyvanse or Concerta or Ritalin for that type. Type 2 is what we call inattentive ADD. These people tend to be labeled as slow or lazy or unmotivated, spacey, but they can be quite distracted. We see their brain is even sleepier than the classic ADD type, and the same lifestyle interventions and medications work. Type 3 is what I call over-focused ADD. These people have the core ADD symptoms: short attention span, but not for everything. For things that are regular, routine, everyday attention, they just struggle with that. The things that make life work: homework, schoolwork, paperwork, chores. But the thing that fools many people with ADD is if things are new, novel, highly stimulating, or frightening. People with ADD can pay attention just fine because love is a drug. Love produces dopamine in the brain, love or thrill seeking. And getting ADD treated, it's just dramatically important. Anyways, type 3. overfocused ADD. The hallmark ADD symptoms: short attention span, distractibility, disorganization, procrastination, and impulse control. In addition, for the overfocused ADD, they have trouble shifting their attention. They tend to worry. They tend to get locked in to negative thoughts or negative behaviors. And if you can't shift your attention, ultimately, you cannot pay attention. These people have low levels of both serotonin and dopamine. And so raising both of them is so important. Diet, exercise, simple supplements I talk about in healing ADD. And from a medicine standpoint, I might use something like an SSRI, like Prozac and Ritalin together. Now, my bias these days is I'll start with supplements before I do that. But if they don't work, I'll clearly do that. Type 4, I mentioned it earlier, is temporal lobe ADD. So they have the ADD symptoms plus mood instability, irritability, temper problems, often associated with learning disabilities like dyslexia. And so we want to stabilize their temporal lobes before we use a stimulant. Type 5 is limbic ADD, where they have the core ADD symptoms, plus they're just negative. Moody, they're sad, they have low energy, they have a decreased interest in life, and they have something that I was just reading about tonight called rejection sensitivity dysphoria. These are people often can't find words to describe the pain. They say it's intense, awful, terrible, overwhelming. It's usually triggered by the perceived or real loss of approval, love, or respect. And it can be really painful and is more common with limbic ADD. And there I use SAMe, or perhaps Wellbutrin, which is a stimulating antidepressant that's also been found to help with ADD. That's why the imaging work is just so important to us, because yes, we want to know your symptoms at Amen Clinics, but we also want to get a look at the biology. Type 6, one of the most interesting subtypes of ADD. I label it the ring of fire. Unlike those with the first two types of ADD, they don't have sleepy frontal lobes. Their whole brain is hyperactive. It's on fire. And it lights up when you look at the scan like a ring, which is why we call it the ring of fire. It has nothing to do with Johnny Cash's song. People with ADD have the hallmark symptoms, plus they're irritable, hyperactive, often excessive talking. They have overfocused issues. They can be oppositional, and the moodiness tends to cycle. Stimulants 8 times out of 10 make this type worse. So we usually use GABA and magnesium to calm things down. And type 7 is what I call anxious ADD. They have all the ADD symptoms, plus they have a tendency to have a fear of being judged. They predict the worst. They're conflict avoidant, and they have physical stress symptoms like headaches, stomach aches, muscle tension. Knowing your type of ADD is key to finding the most effective treatment, and it can change your life in a very positive way. I did a Facebook Live on alternatives to ADD medication, so you should check that out. It's one of the most common conditions among our patients at Amen Clinics. We have treated thousands, probably more than 20,000 children, adolescents, and adults with every type of ADD. So if you're struggling, call us. I can't emphasize enough
how important it is to know if you have it and then to get it treated. A lot of people think they have it, but they didn't have it as a child. And whenever I hear that, I think to myself, it's the effect of traumatic brain injury, because that can make you look like you have ADD. It can be because you have mold in your house. Of a patient, we're dealing with that now. Something you can have had general anesthesia, which can lower blood flow to your brain. My wife had a hysterectomy about 18 months ago, and she clearly could see the impact on her focus and follow through and energy. But check out Healing ADD. And I promise you, you'll love it. I start the book with, I know you're not going to read this book, right? Because if people have a short attention span, they're not going to read a book that's 400 pages. But I summarized it in the first 5 pages and then try to hook you to read more. Left untreated, ADD ruins people's lives. But the exciting thing is when we make your brain better, your whole life can be better. So I hope this was helpful for you. I will see you soon.